Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for attending the August 21st, 24 meeting of the Conservation 2020 Lands Acquisition and Stewardship Advisory Committee. Thank you all very much for coming. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. If we could call the roll, please.
Good evening. Renee Manita for the record. Karen Andrus, absent. Carl Baracco.
Here.
Derek Botana.
Here.
Joseph Cruz.
Here.
Reggie Henderson, absent. Ron Inge.
Here.
Christy Knight. Here. Matthew Lincolnhall.
Here.
John Paul. Here. Christopher Robin.
Here.
Sawyer Smith.
Present.
Shane Spring is absent. Andrew Sund is absent. And Bridget Thoreau. Here. That's a quorum.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Next item on our agenda is the minutes for the July 17th meeting. Please take a look at those. If there's any corrections or comments, please make them. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move the motion.
Okay, and when you make a motion, if you would say your name so that our clerk can record who that is. That's Mr. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second. Bridget Terrio, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. And that carries unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Next item on our agenda is a staff negotiated purchase agreement. Before we get to that, I think that, as everyone will recall, last month we talked about the parcel on Moody Road and recommended that the county go forward with acquisition of that based on the information we were provided. The board acted upon that on Tuesday. It's made the press. Everyone is very excited about that. That's a great addition. And I think it's something that all of us had a hand in, so it's a wonderful thing, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that what happens moves forward, and it did, and I think the board was very pleased to act upon that. So if you get a chance, thank you. It's in the, you can look at the live feed if you wish, but I've seen it in 2 or 3 different news releases. Alrighty. Thank you for allowing me that aside. Item 5A, nomination 129-3, Wanda Lowe, plus or minus 2 acres, an infill parcel, Charlotte Harbor Buffer Preserve. Mr. Clemens.
This is an infill parcel. The appraised value came in at $96,500, but after we did some analysis, we felt that price should be a little lower. And the property owner agreed to sell it for $78,000. The advantage of buying this particular property is it does cut off, that this particular property owner owns access that would be heavily intrusive in this preserve area if we don't buy it. So this is a big benefit closing this one out. The staff recommends to proceed with acquiring the property at this price.
Alrighty. Before we call for public comment, we'll see if the board has any questions or comments, and I would ask that you hold off any motions until after we hear from the public, and given as though this is a recommendation for the purchase, if it's a unanimous vote, we won't have to, but if it's not, we will need each individual to state their vote for the record. So any questions or comments of staff regarding nomination 129-3, Wanda Lowe, 2 acres as an infill parcel, Charlotte Harbor Buffer Preserve. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the public. I have 2 cards. I'd like to call you up in the order I received them. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak, and thank you very much for coming. The first is Nick Sweat. Sir, you have to come to the podium to speak, sir.
He's for the next person. For parcel 654.
Yes, sir. Oh, never mind. Man, I tell you, I am unqualified for this. See, I wanted to hear from you anyway. Okay, would anyone in the public care to address item 129-3? Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Put forward a motion to proceed with the purchase.
Mr. Cruz and Chris Robin. Second by Mr. Robin. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please verbally say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That carries unanimously, so please let the record reflect that all members voted in favor of recommending acquisition. Thank you all very much for that. Next item is acquisition review. We have two nominations. The first is nomination 652, JRD LLC, 3.7 acres, Mullet Creek Preserve, Shadow Creek Boulevard area. We'll have staff give us a presentation on that. And again, if you would, hold off any action until we have a chance to hear from the public. So, Mr. Clemens, please bring us up to date on this parcel.
Yes, on this particular nomination, that's what I was waiting for, is a closer view of this. So you can see it. It's about under a 4-acre tract of land. You can see it's fronting a road on two sides. This being a parcel this small with this much road impact, even though it scored, 40 points, staff does not, or excuse me, it scored 36 points. Staff does not recommend going forward with this property. We don't see that it provides a whole lot of benefit, and the asking price is $3.6 million.
Okay.
So being that this is more a commercial piece of property and the cost of this, to kind of put this in perspective, the parcel you discussed earlier Moody River went for 7.9 million, and that's 40 acres on the river, versus this at almost half that price. So not a lot of bang for the buck in relative terms. That's our general reason for not recommending going forward with it.
Questions or comments from the board? It does have a common point with the Mullet Creek Preserve, although it might be just a point. And what is that facility to the west? Is that a water storage tank?
Yeah, that's a utility facility, so we gain access from Shadow Creek Boulevard through that county facility, or if we need to get in there, we may. So this really doesn't even provide additional accessibility because it is just at a point.
Questions by the board, please? All right, seeing none, we'll open for public comment. Would anyone in the public care to speak on nomination 652? It's 3.78 acres on Shadow Creek Boulevard. If so, please come forward. Ma'am, please. Please state your name, and we welcome you to be here.
Thank you kindly. My name is Terry Kane. Some of you here know me. I am infamous in Lee County. No. I used to work for Lee County 5 years ago. I've been retired. I'm very familiar with Mullet Creek Preserve. Right now, we trespass when we go in there to work at Mullet Creek Preserve. I would suggest, I understand getting the price lower. I think it's great to try to get the price lower, but I think this would be a great parcel because we really have no access into Mullet Creek. The utilities that are there have a wire fence around it, and it's very difficult to get through that property to get there. So I would just, and there's a conservation easement to the north of the now present Mullet Creek, so this would add to that natural area. So I think it would be a good acquisition to have, especially if you've never walked the little tiny Mullet Creek Preserve. It's a lovely little parcel, and that would be a great amenity to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else in the audience care to speak on nomination 652? 3.78 acres more or less on Shadow Creek Boulevard. If so, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section. What is the board's pleasure with respect to nomination 652?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Have we tried to talk to the owners about negotiating a better price at all at this point, or?
We haven't had much conversation about that. At 3.6 million, I can't imagine. Again, even if they cut it in half.
Wow.
And we did have a conversation with utilities, and they said they would allow access through that.
Okay.
Mr. Buchanan?
What kind of zoning is on that property currently?
I believe it's commercial.
When you say commercial, is that gas station, hotel?
I don't know if they have a CPD zoning on it or not.
Mr. Clemens, is there anywhere in the county that carries that value of land regardless of zoning?
We bought about 68 acres on Sanibel, and we paid less than 7 million for that. So in relative terms, I do not recall one. A couple of times we bought small lots like on Fort Myers Beach to access, I think it's called Matanzas Pass Park.
It is.
And we paid a couple of $100,000 for lots so that we would have the access and parking, but
So, Mr. Clemens, would you say that the value of this land, regardless of the zoning, is inflated past the point that the county staff could recommend this purchase to this committee?
my personal and professional recommendation as for land acquisition purposes for conservation as to what this contributes, I think this exceeds, the dollars exceed the environmental benefit.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Staff, any action the board would care to take?
I'll move that it not be considered.
We have a motion by Mr. Baracco, second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? We have a motion to recommend that this not move forward for consideration of acquisition. All in favor of the motion to not move it forward, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Okay, now we're to the number where I'd called folks up mistakenly. Nomination 654, Corkscrew Tree LLC, plus or minus 100 acres in the Crew area. Mr. Clemens.
Yes, this parcel that scored 40 points is a 100-acre tract of land. At this point, we're assuming that it has access off of Carter Road and that we would have legal access to the property. Staff is recommending to go forward with acquisition activities on this particular parcel. As you can see, it is on the southern boundary of Lee County and Collier County, and it ties into the Crew Regional Preserve. So for those reasons, we recommended to go forward with acquisition activities.
Thank you, sir. Questions of Mr. Clemens? Robert, is there a physical barrier between the property in question and the Crew Trust property, or is that just a line on the map? Is there like a road or anything there, or do they adjoin without any?
I don't know for certain if there's a fence around the property or not. Maybe the gentleman who's going to approach could address that.
I was thinking more of a road or anything that might separate it from a flow standpoint, if you will.
If there is a road in this area, my last travels out there, they were dirt roads, and the water flowed over them a couple of times when I was out about this time of the year.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Clemens?
Does the water that currently flows through the ditches go south into the Crew lands?
The flow patterns here, I'm not certain of. Maybe Roland knows?
I believe it does. I mean, eventually it'll build up and go south because of natural topography in the area, but there may be some obstructions and berms in the area that we may, in concert with the Crew Land Trust, maybe perhaps remove it as part of the mitigation or the restoration.
I do believe that there is a berm, just because I do some work on the neighboring property at Verdon Village. And, as part of Verdon Village, we constructed this weir that takes water on from both sides of the property and flows it down into Corkscrew Swamp.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions before we go to the public? All right, thank you. We'll open the floor for comments from the public. Mr. Sweat?
My name's Nick Sweat with Gulf Shore Properties. I'm here to represent the seller, Corkscrew Tree. I'll be real quick. There is access from Carter Road all the way down to the southwest corner there. Honestly, I wish we would have known about this option a long time ago. The sellers are ecstatic to move forward and cooperate however need be, site visits, whatever it is. They just wanted me to come tonight and reiterate to you that they're excited to move forward with you guys and whatever we got to do.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Have a card from Mr. Brad Cornell on nomination 654. Please come forward, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm Brad Cornell. I'm here on behalf of Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary in Audubon, Florida. Our property is the immediate adjacent neighbor of this nomination. Our Panther Island Mitigation Bank is currently restoring the area that's immediately south, which was formerly owned by the South Florida Water Management District. They were farm fields, and we're taking those farm fields and putting them back into wetlands. And we support 2020 buying this, moving this forward with a recommendation to the board to pursue acquisition. It's important to restore these ag lands into short hydro-period wetlands is really what they should be from what our understanding of the land is. They should be wet prairies or something similar to that. And Corkscrew would be very interested in coordinating and or collaborating with Lee County if you acquire this. This would be an important joint project that's of mutual interest. The water that flows from this project onto our property has a huge influence, and we have seen very negative influences from agriculture to our north. So we're very anxious to see that mitigated and restored to natural wetlands. And I also want to point out one last thing, and that is this property is similar to the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed, the CREW project, the Florida Forever project, in particular the unit called CREW Headwaters, which was added in 2016. And the purpose is, even those are mostly orange groves, and similar to this is an opportunity to restore and create buffers with restored wetlands to the preserves, both CREW and our Audubon Sanctuary immediately to the south. So, as I mentioned, we're seeing very negative impacts of agriculture, and so the CREW Headwaters project for Florida Forever and this project for Lee 2020 would both have the opportunity to have those really important regional mitigation values restored through acquisition and restoration. So we urge recommendation to buy. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. Would anyone else in the public care to comment on nomination 654, Corkscrew Tree LLC, 100 acres adjacent to the CREW Trust property? Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of this agenda item. What is the board's pleasure, or do you have other questions of staff?
I'll put forward the motion that we go ahead with the purchase.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to go forward for acquisition review because we're not at the purchase level at this point. Is that, if you will accept that correction? Mm-hmm. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Alrighty, any further comments? If seeing none, all in favor of a motion to forward this for possible acquisition review or for acquisition review, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. The next item is 7A, which is an update on the Kiker Preserve. I do have a couple of cards on that. There is public comment at the end of the agenda, so I will call y'all up at that point in time. But this is an informational item. We're not going to be asked to take any specific action on it, so we'll be looking forward to your comments at that portion of the agenda. So just to let you know, there's going to be an item in between the discussion and then the public comment section. So, Mr. Clemens, who's going to lead the discussion on this? Matt, are you going to?
You want to start it off? Let Roland start it off with the burns part of it.
Sure, yeah. Right now, we are working with DEP to finalize our grant agreement. You may have heard before, we've received a $22.7 million grant from Resilient Florida, and also $1 million from them as well for design of the Kiker water management features. So if you look at that graphic up there, the perimeter is in black, that's the Kuiper Preserve. And part of that grant agreement is we have to have a 50% match. And so they're allowing us to use the purchase of the property towards that match. Obviously, we paid much more than 22.7, so we do not have to necessarily count the entire parcel. So what they've asked us to do is carve out a certain area in there that would have restrictive covenants on it that would essentially a conservation easement over it that would match in value the $22.7 million. And so that's what we are working along with county lands and parks and also other folks in Lee County staff working that out right now. That's the status with that. Just to recap the project, outlined in black is the Kuiper Preserve. The idea is to provide some flood attenuation. Right? And attenuation is the buzzword there because we're not trying to create a reservoir. A reservoir would just create a permanent pool. You're not really storing floodwaters at that point. We see this as an opportunity to provide some enhancement to the wetlands out there that are overdrained and perhaps enhance the hydro period out there. While at the same time, if you get like a 10-inch to 15-inch rainfall, we temporarily hold the water and release the water at a controlled rate that doesn't flood properties downstream. So along that perimeter, along the west side of that, along I-75, there will be a berm and water control structures at the existing crossings at I-75, basically Estero River, Halfway Creek. And so what we'll do is provide basically water control structures also there, but also internal to the project through the use of, access roads and the like. So there'll be some, alterations in terms of hydrology to the positive and so we can enhance the wetlands out there as well. The berm, the full length of the berm will not only wrap around Kuiper Preserve, it'll, on that southern line of the black line there, it'll move all the way to the east to where you see all that mining activity. That's Bonita Grand Mine. They're putting a development in there, and we are going to utilize their eastern perimeter berm as a tie-in to ours. So we have an agreement with them to raise their community berm by 2 feet, and so we're saving a lot of money and a lot less impacts because we don't have to put a parallel berm to the east of that and into Corkscrew, Flint Penn Strand area. So, and then from there, we're trying to bring it all the way down to Kiel Canal, which is that blue line above Bonita Beach Road, and that would be the outfall to Imperial River. Right now, we don't have an exact alignment. That's going to be looking at a lot of land acquisition still that needs to be taken place. And from time to time, you see those crude lands come up, and we're trying to fill in all the blanks out there basically, so that's all under public ownership. And so that's a long-term, it's going to be a multi-phase project. Right now, we have funds, like I said, from Brazilian, Florida to do the portion of Kuiper Preserve. We have agreement with the developer for segment 2, but that last segment is going to take some time based on needed land acquisition. So I'm open for any questions you may have. Now, Mac may want to chime in on terms of the development.
Roland just said that once that portion of the project is complete, then parks will come in later on. We got some different ideas that we want to bring in: camping, walking trails, horseback riding, and parking for trailers and things like that. But we can't do anything until Roland and his guys finish with the berms. So once that's completed, then we just start that process when that time comes.
Do you have kind of a vision of what you think those are going to look like? Have you started to put pencil to paper on that in terms of a layout or something, or is it?
Well, we don't have any solid drafts yet because the commission hasn't even seen anything yet either. So once we get to that point, we'll put some concepts together and probably have some ideas. Once we get to that part, and we can bring it up to the meeting and show everybody what we have.
Any questions of Mr. Ottolini or Mr. Young? Mr. Botana.
What is the projected depth that will be on Larry Kuiper once the berms are fully functional? If we have a 15-inch rain event, how deep would the water get on that property?
3-4 feet. We're anticipating the berm to be no higher, the levee or berm, whatever you want to call it, about 6 feet high. So you're going to have storage or freeboard above the top of that because you don't obviously have to allow for any kind of wind setup plus overtopping. So maybe 3 or 4 feet. And again, that's an extreme event. And it's probably getting pretty close, we're maybe adding, maybe 2 feet onto what's out there now, so it's not, like I said, it's not going to be a permanent pool. The idea is to bring it down, but at a controlled rate.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Thank you all for that update. Please keep us informed as we go along. Given the size of this and how much public interest there is in it, the more information that you can bring forward so that we can kind of tell folks, but then people can see it at this meeting as well, would be very helpful. So
Yeah, as far as schedule is concerned, once we get the grant approved from DEP, we can go ahead and put out to public the design element of it. Right now, we don't have anybody on board to do the detailed design, so that will be following next.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is 7B, committee member items. This is the time of year where we nominate and elect the CLASAC chair. I happen to be armed with the Robert's Rules of Order that I've been provided, and there are 5 methods by which you can nominate folks. The second is from the floor, so barring any mutinies or people not wanting to do that, we're going to open the floor for nominations for chair. So please speak up with who you would care to nominate for chair for this upcoming year.
I would love to nominate Ron Inge.
Is that the only reason you came?
Yes, that's it. Well, that and to ask if we could take where it says Village of Estero, remove the 900 holes of golf, put back cypress heads and oak hammocks. But if that's not possible, Ron Inge is chair.
Okay, we have a nomination for Ron Inge as chair. Do we have any other further nominations? Please speak forward, please.
I'll move to close the nominations.
Sorry, Dad.
We have a motion to close the nominations. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the nominations. We unfortunately have one unqualified candidate that's been nominated. All in favor of Ron Inge serving as chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. And that carries. Thank you all very much. Honestly, I appreciate the honor of being able to be involved in this committee and serve as chair. And please shepherd me along as I mess up by calling people out of order and things. The next item is nomination and election of vice chair. Currently, Mr. Spring serves as vice chair. What is your pleasure with respect to a nomination for someone to serve as vice chair for this coming year? Excuse me.
I'll do it twice. I think Mr. Baraka would make a wonderful nice chair. So I'd nominate Mr. Baraka for vice chair.
All right, we have a nomination for Mr. Baraka as vice chair. Do we have any other comments or nominations?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
As long as Ron Inge promises not to miss a meeting, I'm good.
Well, we'll try my best. So we have Mr. Baraka nominated. Any other nominations from the floor? Please bring those forward. All right, we'll entertain a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cruz seconded that. We have a motion and a second to close the nominations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That carries. Mr. Baraka has been nominated as vice chair. All in favor of him serving in that capacity, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. And that carries. Thank you all very much.
Well done.
Congratulations, Mr. Baraka. All righty. Thank you all for that courtesy. The next item on our agenda is public comment. I have a couple of cards from folks that want to speak on the Kiker Preserve, so I'll call them in the order in which they were received. Please come forward. You have 3 minutes. The first is Holly Schwartz. Ms. Schwartz, please come forward.
Hi there. Congratulations, Chairman Inge. My name is Holly Schwartz. I'm from the Eyes on Conservation 2020 Coalition. We saw the Larry Kiker Preserve planning process on the agenda and got really excited. No offense, Roland. We love the water quality stuff, but we were kind of hoping for an update on the amenities to the project. And we would like to ask about the specific process where we know there's a consultant on the project, and we'd kind of like to request an update on where that consultant is in terms of the deliverables of that contract that was let a little while ago, and part of the deliverable was to schedule public meetings. So we were hoping that before decisions were definitively made on where amenities would go or what kind of amenities, that we might get an idea of public input meetings. We know folks from Estero are pretty interested, and we hear from them quite a bit. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Staff, I know, is taking a note of that, and I suspect we'll hear more on that as time goes along. Thank you, Holly. The next card I have is Patty, I believe it is, Whitehead, speaking about the Kiker Preserve as well. Please come forward.
Hi, good evening, CLASAC. I am a resident of Estero. It's been a while since I've sort of kept up to date with what's going on. At this point in time, I thought that we would be the county would be further along with the consultant and engaging the public more in the process. The engineering aspects of this project that Mr. Ottolini talked about earlier are very interesting, but, kind of concerning as well. But I realize things need to be done because obviously this property is more and more becoming surrounded by development. And it sounds like essentially the county wants to act like a giant dry detention basin with these massive berms, encircled by these massive berms. What you have to do what you have to do, I understand that. But, there's other aspects. It's a massive property. It can serve many purposes, both for the public and endangered species. In one of the early conceptual designs, it showed, I guess, the main visitor reception center in the center of the property, and I was really dismayed by that because, you're sort of carving the heart out of the watermelon for, a lot of human impact, where it could be, you could put that visitor center, off to the periphery off of a main road. You could put it off to Corkscrew Road or from the Bonita side and, preserve that core so that, endangered species can utilize it without being frightened by humans. So that's one aspect of it. But, people in Estero, and I think people in Bonita, people in South Lee County, this is an important project for Lee County. Let's face it, this is a keystone project for Lee County. It's time to get the public engaged, really, and, maybe jump the gun a little bit and have the county bring the public in even before the consultant becomes involved. I think it would be worth your while to do it. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I do have a card. Terry Kane, I know that you spoke earlier on a nomination. Would you care to speak as well on this?
I have a couple issues, so I'm hoping this is the general public comment.
Ma'am, please go forward.
I will talk about Kiker Preserve for a minute here in regards to the huge project that it is. Terry Kane, for the record. It is a huge project. I agree with everyone. We need to get the public on board. I know people in Estero. I also want everybody to remember I'm one of those people that of the 80% that voted 2 times for Conservation 2020. Not once, but twice. The county of Lee County residents voted for Conservation 2020. The name of the program, Conservation. Conservation, habitat. We don't want to lose that at Kiker Preserve. We want to have the habitat for the wildlife. We have parks and we have preserves. And sometimes they do get melded, and I would like them not to be. I would like to have conservation areas. There's part of the public, I'm one of them, who likes to go walk preserves. I want to be out in the wild. I want the dirt path. I want things like that. So when I see amenities coming in, I love our parks. I love Lakes Park. Take my granddaughter there. But then there are the other part of the public that I wish you would please consider. So that's my spiel on Kiker Preserve. Also, I've read recently about the budget cuts to Conservation 2020, and I'm very upset about that and worried about it. Again, I'm one of those voters that voted for Conservation 2020 twice. I worry about us not having enough funds in Conservation 2020 for purchases. I worry about management plans. I don't know when the last management plan was written. We used to write them every 5 years, and they need to be updated and written every 5 years so that when the public comes to Conservation 2020 or the county commissioners, we can say, this is what this preserve was for. This is our goals. This is our measurables. And I'm also very concerned that many of you are new, you're new faces to me anyway, I've been around for a little too long, that we also have a whole lot of money in Florida Communities Trust. They're the grants that we have gotten to purchase a whole lot of these acreages. Millions, probably hundreds of millions. Those plans are supposed to be updated once a year. I've asked a couple people, I haven't gotten any answers. I'm very concerned about us keeping Florida Communities Trust in the loop, because if we don't keep up that end of grant writing, I don't know how many of you here write grants, the Florida Community Trust reserves the right to take that money back. I think Lee County needs to be on their toes with this. I think they need to be, all the preserves that we have Florida Communities Trust, one I know very well is Bunch Beach. We have $200,000 from Florida Communities Trust just in Bunch Beach. That's only one area. We have the whole rest of these preserves around Lee County. So please, I'm concerned about the bookkeeping. I'm concerned about the lack of funds, because we as Lee County, we used to write our own management plans, and then we took them out of house. They're very expensive. I'm getting the yellow sign. So please, just be careful of the housekeeping, and I really would like to see us continue on in a positive manner for the residents and the taxpayers of Lee County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kane, go ahead and have a seat. Okay. Just for information, we did discuss this last month, and there is perhaps a misconception that the funding is being cut. The budget amount reported last month, and is in our minutes, was changed from $5 million to $3 million for this coming year, because we have a $3.9 million carryover from the prior year. So if you add the 3 this year to the 3.9 carryover, it's roughly around 6.9. So the funding amount is still there, and it was pointed out by in a memo from Pete Winton that if that amount gets below $5 million, they'll do whatever needs to be done to bring it back up to that number. So it was a cut in the amount of funding going into an account that already has $3.9 million in it, is what happened. So it wasn't just a blatant cut of the budget. So if you would, please pass that around. But thank you for bringing that up. Our next any other items to come before the board?
I would like to ask if I recall correctly, a while back, you guys were tasked with reaching out to Zemel about the Redfish Point, and I was wondering if there was any updates on that, because I know that they have resubmitted paperwork to the city of Cape Coral for the land use change once again.
We haven't received any response from any of their representatives, and I sent it to 3 different ones.
Has there been any follow-up from our side as far as?
We have dealt with them for about the past 8 years. You know, this has come up and then slowed down and come up. So how should I say, I'm not sure what they're looking to do.
Is there any other comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Rocco's on his game there. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Cruz. Any comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We're adjourned. Our next meeting is September 18th.